Chapter 12. River watched the appalling spectacle that was Finn devouring food. From time to time, she peered at Beth, surveying her facial expressions and body movements, trying to glean what she thought of it all. These boys were a lot to take in at first. She recalled when she first stumbled upon them, how unusual they were. That was quite a while ago. She had been hopping trains for roughly a year and a half, mostly keeping to herself. She would occasionally tag along with a small group, but that never lasted long. River found she didn't like the drama that took place whenever groups gathered. It took too much energy, too much effort to keep up with it all. Life was simpler alone. After spending the winter along the soft sandy shores of Tampa, she decided it was time to hit the road. The sameness of it all bored her. She needed to move. One night, she hopped a train, heading west. Exactly where she was heading didn't matter. Winter was over, so any area in the U.S. would be fine. Enjoying the solitude, she rode for days, hopping from one train only to catch another within hours. It was grueling. When she landed in Roswell, New Mexico, she decided it was time for a hot shower and some rest. She rented herself a cheap motel room. For the next 2 days, she languished in bed until noon, ate too much junk food, watched television, and relaxed in a nice hot bath. In the evenings, she prowled the city streets. Drifting from bar to bar, she collected money from tip jars, swiped billfolds from unsuspecting men, and snagged more than one wallet from the purse of an intoxicated woman. It was all too easy. River was great at avoiding unwanted scrutiny, or so she assumed. On the third night, she captured the attention of a group of 4 men. They followed her from one bar to another. Each time she was confident she lost them, only to discover they were not far behind. She walked faster, they kept up. She wanted to run, but she feared if she did, they would overtake her. There was no way she could outrun them all. Searching the dark street, she needed to shake them. Focusing all her attention on the men behind her, she rounded a corner and ran headlong into a dark-haired man. "Hey there," he said, flashing a crooked smile. Behind him, sitting on the curb, were 3 more men, all roughly the same age. The worn clothes, unkempt hair, and bronzed skin, she knew right away they were Nomads. She glanced back. Her followers had stopped. They were hanging around just far enough to appear innocent, yet close enough to keep an eye on her. It would be best if she led them to believe these were her friends. So she turned on all her charms and whipped up a conversation. In his hand, the dark-haired stranger held a metal flask. River stared directly into his eyes. "Care to share?" she asked, deliberately standing inches from him. This made him uneasy. It also gave her stalkers the impression they were friends. A deep red blush spread across his face. Yeah, here," he sputtered. He handed over the flask, then wiped his palms off on his legs. The cool metal had a slick film of perspiration on it. Continuing to stare, she cleaned off the opening, then took a swig. She smiled. "What's your name?" His mouth moved as though he were formulating words, but none came out. Behind him, his friends howled. Another dark-haired man sauntered up, his hair a mass of unkempt waves that made him look as though he had just awakened from a nap. A pair of red-rimmed sunglasses covered his eyes. River found that odd. It's nighttime. How could he see anything? She wondered. He wrapped his arm around his silent friend's shoulder. "Cat's got your tongue?" he asked. A blond man with blue eyes appeared on the other side of the quiet one. He smirked and leaned close. "Someone put a creakery on him." The mute one could only shake his head. "Maybe he swallowed the wrong way," said the one with sunglasses. "It's possible," responded the blonde. He poked the silent one's cheek. "He look a little rosy to you?" "More like bright red," Mr. Sunglasses chuckled. "Actually, he kind of looks like a deer caught in the headlights of a truck." They laughed. River almost felt bad for him. "Cash," he shouted. "My name is Cash." He shoved the other 2 away. "You guys are assholes." The blonde one blew him a kiss. The one with sunglasses simply snickered. "Hello, Cash. I'm River," she replied. "What are your 2 friends' names?" The blonde leaned forward. "Teague," he pointed to Mr. Sunglasses. "This is Finn." Finn didn't move. The smile on his face had vanished. He stared. This made River uneasy. The last friend sauntered up. He stood beside Finn. "I'm Zach," he stated. With hardly a pause, he continued. "Those 4 guys down the street, they ain't friends of yours, are they?" His tone was so matter-of-fact, it threw River off guard. She didn't quite know how to respond. She shook her head. No, they aren't." Zach nodded. "You know they're following you?" Yeah, I know, she replied, a little uneasy about how exposed she felt at the moment. For the first time, the others took note of her stalkers. Zach peered down the street. They say anything to you? Harass you? No. Finn stepped forward and called out. Hey, yo, assholes, you got a problem? One man hollered a response, but River couldn't make out what he said. Maybe you should just move along before I have to kick your asses, shouted Finn. Someone yelled back. Come on down here and let's see who gets their ass beat. Aight, replied Finn, and he stomped straight for them. I'll go, Zach said to Teague. He brushed past River. Teague and Cash glanced at one another. Then they too followed Finn. The encounter didn't last long. A little shoving and a lot of cursing later, the four men stormed off, middle fingers in the air. She was glad for that. She didn't want anyone to fight for her. Thank you, said River. I didn't really know what to do about them. That why you came up to us? Asked Cash. She didn't want to admit the truth. It made her feel weak and manipulative. She nodded. Well, he said, it's a good thing you did. I'm glad we could help. He flashed a crooked grin. Want to hang out with us? Just to be sure they don't return. River found his smile charming. He had a mischievous air about him. Not malevolent, lighthearted. She agreed to stick around for a while. They spent hours wandering the city. To her surprise, she enjoyed their company. She laughed so much her belly hurt. They had a familiarity about them. She didn't want the time to end, so she encouraged them to stay at her motel. Over the next few days, they teased, laughed, and wormed their way into her heart. 4 days after they met, they all hopped a train heading west. Finn finally had his fill of pizza, so he asked Beth about the bridge. Beth cleared her throat and fidgeted. The actual name is Old Alton Bridge. Its nickname is the Goatman's Bridge. There's a local legend about a ghost that haunts the area. Wait, a what? Asked Cash, pausing between bites. She said a ghost? The Goatman, replied River, trying to help Beth feel more at ease. Pay attention. For real? He asked. Beth nodded. Like I said, it's hidden. They built a new bridge years ago for cars to drive on, but they left the old wooden one in place. It's a historical marker now, a walking trail. She flipped her hair to the other side. The woods are thick down along the river bank. No one ever goes there. You'd have it all to yourselves. She flipped her hair one more time. Teague leaned back against the step. I don't know. What are your thoughts? He asked Finn. Before he could respond, River chimed in. You already know there's no way we're going to leave this place without checking it out. She winked at Beth, who seemed to loosen up a little. At least the hair flipping and fidgeting slowed down. Are there any houses near? Asked Teague. No, not really. People say they get the creeps when they're there at night, so they stay away. Kids around here are boring. No sense of adventure, she said, attempting to sound cool. River cringed. She knew the guys caught that. Please don't harass her. Finn and Teague flashed a smirk to one another. Mais non, said Teague. How tragic to have no sense of adventure. His words dripped with condescension. Beth's shoulders hunched. She flipped her hair again. River felt awful for her. Don't pay any mind to them, Beth. They're just being assholes. She shot a warning glare at Teague. Where is this place again? Beth shifted her body to face River. The south end of town, near a high school. It's a long walk from here, but it's doable. As annoying as the guys were, River knew they weren't being malicious. She hoped Beth could see that. Done with their shenanigans, she hopped to her feet and placed her arm around Beth's shoulder in a show of solidarity. They stopped laughing. Sometimes y'all have no manners, she scolded. It's okay, Beth. I think the bridge sounds like a great place to spend the night. Doesn't it, Cash? Cash swallowed his pizza and nodded with a thumbs up. How about you, Zach? He liked to hang back and watch how unfamiliar people interacted with the group. Though more open to newcomers than Finn or Teague, he wasn't prone to jumping right in with anyone he didn't already know. He shot a knowing look at River and smiled. I'm in. So, what do you think? River asked Teague. The best course of action was to convince him first, and he would get Finn to come along. Finn always did what Teague wanted him to do, even if he didn't like it. I think we should at least check it out. Right, Finn? Finn didn't reply. He was glaring at Beth. Ignoring him, Teague continued. We'll need to get our gear before we head over there. He stood up. Well, Beth, looks like you're our tour guide. Let's go check this place out. River hooked her arm around Beth's. Okay, you heard the man. Let's go. The two girls led the group away from the square. Walking down the street, each of them took turns checking the doors of the parked cars. At first, River thought nothing of it, until she noticed Beth's demeanor change. This was all just a regular part of their lives. Beth was more than a little nervous. River wondered what she could say to make her feel a little better. Cash sprinted past them to be in the lead. He tried the door of a parked SUV and found it unlocked. Looking up, he smiled at everyone and hopped in. A few yards away, River and Beth stopped and waited under a tree. Beside the car, Teague stood sentry, while Finn and Zach joined the girls. Beth ran her fingers through her hair. She glanced around nervously. River stood close. We check all the parked cars, vending machines, or newspaper stands for cash, or other valuables. You get money any way you can, finding it's a better way than others. Beth flashed a pathetic smile. This only made River feel worse. It was so obvious that Beth was trying hard to fit in. What are some of the other ways? Beth asked. I mean, you said taking money or finding money is better than... What? To River's surprise, Finn replied, well, you can beg for it, or you can always get it the old-fashioned way, by earning it. What kind of jobs? Beth asked him. Huh? He was biting his nails as he watched Cash and Teague. You said you can earn money. What are some of the ways you can do that? River watched this exchange with a great deal of interest. That Finn was even talking to Beth was a good sign. He stopped staring down the street and shrugged. Sometimes odd jobs. He pulled his sunglasses down to look into Beth's eyes. And occasionally, it's doing things that aren't necessarily legal. Your eyes! Beth exclaimed, causing Finn to push his glasses back up. His face turned deep red. So close, thought River. It almost looked like he was warming up to Beth. Now he might close off completely. Beth quickly apologized. I'm sorry. Are your eyes two different colors? Did I see that right? She asked. Finn turned away. Yeah, they are. Lots of people love Finn's eyes, said River. It makes him uncomfortable. The rest of us think it's cool. She nudged him, hoping he would lighten up. Well, I think they're cool too, said Beth in her gentle voice. You shouldn't hide them. Awesome. I'll keep that in mind, Finn replied with a derisive tone. He twitched his nose and turned his focus back to Teague and Cash. Just like that, the conversation ended. They stood in agonizing silence for several minutes as they waited. Time crawled. Cash was taking forever. River wondered what was taking so long. When he finally emerged from the SUV and rejoined the group, she was more than a little relieved. His witty conversation helped brighten the mood. River was grateful for that. It was a much-needed change. After a brief stop to collect their gear, they proceeded along their way. They trekked for miles, past small stores, apartment buildings, churches, and auto shops. Passing a neighborhood park, they decided to take a break. They found a shady spot near a small pond. Ducks swam, geese lounged on the shoreline. A cool breeze rustled the leaves of the trees. River sat with her feet dangling in the cool water, face uplifted toward the warm sun, eyes closed. You know, we could stay here tonight, said Cash. That brush over there looks dense. I bet no one would see us. I want to see the goat man, replied Teague, smiling. Somehow I knew one of you were going to say that, Cash responded. But I thought it was going to be this one. He pointed at Finn. Beth leaned closer to River. I never asked what brought y'all here to town. Well, replied River, we were heading south toward Austin, and we ran into some trouble. What's in Austin? Some friends of yours? You sure ask a lot of questions, interrupted Finn. River scowled at him, then replied to Beth. You could say that. Truth is, we have some business to take care of down there before we head further west. Beth nodded and said nothing more. Damn it, Finn, stop being an ass, thought River. Even Teague seemed to warm up to Beth. Sometimes she wished that Finn wasn't so antisocial. After an hour enjoying the stillness of the pond, it was time to move on. By late afternoon, they passed a high school that sat across the street from a small chapel. They turned down a rural road and walked about a quarter mile when Beth stopped, spun around, and gestured with her arms. This is it, she shouted. River took in the area. Beth did not exaggerate. It was private. To their left, a gravel parking lot lay hidden among large trees. Beyond that, a path receded into the woods. You're shitting me, right? Said Cash, piercing through the silence. I mean, seriously. I get that it's out of the way. I'll give you that much. But that forest? He swatted away invisible bugs. I'm already getting itchy from the mosquitoes. I can feel malaria coming on. Come on, guys. It's not too late to go back and camp over by that park. Before he could complete his sentence, Finn had already bolted down the path. River chuckled. She took hold of Beth's hand and followed. Still standing in the middle of the road, Cash called out, I've seen horror movies that start out exactly like this. He slowly followed. Just so you know, it didn't end well for most of the characters. A few yards down the path, they came to the old wooden bridge. So, this is the Goatman's Bridge, huh? Asked River. Beth nodded proudly. Doesn't look very eerie to me, Cash said as he nudged Zach. It's still daylight, said River. Below the bridge, murky water flowed, framed by sandbars. Thick woods enveloped the entire area, creating the mirage they were far away from civilization. Finn pointed out along the river. I bet we can find a place to camp just beyond that bend over there. Without waiting for a reply, he hopped over the rail and ran into the woods. They followed the riverbank until they came to a private clearing. Water on one side, thick woodland on the other. So, what do y'all think? Asked Finn. River looked around. The sand beneath her feet was soft and fine. She listened to the birds singing in the trees. I like it. It's kind of wild and ignored. She hesitated, then added, like us. Cash chimed in. I'm with her. I guess I kinda like it too. With Beth's help, River chose a patch of flat land alongside an embankment. After tramping around to create a flat area, she pulled her tent out of its sack and directed Beth on what to do. It was funny to watch her struggle. River supposed Beth had done little camping in her life. At least not tent camping. The tent was almost finished. All that remained was to bang the stakes into the ground. River peered up at Beth. So, do you live nearby? Beth shook her head. My house is across town, on the north end. Isn't that a long way? How are you going to get back there tonight? I guess I hadn't thought that part out just yet. Beth shrugged. River didn't want her to leave. I know. You can spend the night with us. You can share my tent with me. Beth lit up. Really? That would be so cool. Laughing, she spun Beth around and walked over by the fire, where Zach had just finished laying out his sleeping bag. Beth's gonna spend the night with us, she announced. Well, my sleeping bag isn't made for two, quipped Zach, but we can make it work. He winked at Beth. River shoved him. She's gonna stay with me, jerk. Cash sat down beside the fire. You sure, Beth? My hammock has plenty of room. He began shuffling a deck of playing cards. River scoffed. Stop being a creep. Based on the shade of red that had washed over Beth's face, she was feeling a little uncomfortable. Don't listen to them, Beth. They're just messing around, assured River. Moments later, Finn and Teague joined them. The crackle of the fire, mixed with the mellow, flowing sound of the water, made for a calm setting. River loved the smell of a campfire. To her, that was the smell of home. Zach pulled out his flask of moonshine, took a swig, then passed it around.